I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, to get started here on this taxation meeting, we're gonna need to do a roll call. So we're gonna start with Miss Becky.
Here.
Here. Matt's here.
Here.
Ken.
Here.
Denny's here.
Here.
Karen's here. I'm here. Doug is gonna be just a few minutes late, so. So this is our official terms, truth and taxation budget presentation. And so at this time, we're gonna call on Miss Liz, our business manager, to go over our budget for us.
So, the truth and taxation portion, I'll stand over here where Doug is not for.
There we go.
You can step up at a table if you want to.
That's okay.
They're more comfortable.
I'm good. So in order to levy the appropriate amount of property taxes for funding the 23-24 general fund budget, which I'll present in a moment here, McBain Rural Agricultural Schools will levy 18 operating mills. And also in 2023, the 2023 debt millage will be levied at 1 mill, and the sinking fund will be levied at 3 mills. For the 2023 debt, payments are due each year in November and May, beginning in November of 2024. So the 1 mill will need to be levied in order to make those payments. And the debt and sinking fund levies were approved by voters in May of 2023. And those are all reflected on a copy of the L4029 that was in your packet.
I didn't make a copy of that one, I apologize.
That's the L4029, the form that goes to the treasurers and the counties for collecting taxes. So, all right, well, I think should we just dive right into the general fund? I made copies of the notes. I'm not gonna, read through them and list out all those dollar amounts. I think I may have done that the last one, but I wanted you to have, some general information on the larger changes that are in them, both the amendment and then the original budget. So on the one that has 5 columns on there. The second from the right is the proposed June amendment. And so just to highlight a few changes from the February amendment, we made some changes to local revenues for property taxes. Those had decreased, and so therefore then state aid increases, they offset each other, but they're in separate parts of the revenue. Increased preschool tuition again to get it closer to where it actually was. Investment interest, which has been wonderful this year after the last couple of years of hardly making any interest on anything. And then as far as the state and federal, again with the increase in the per pupil because the property taxes had decreased. I adjusted the at-risk 31.0, the safety grants, the ESSER to match expenditures where expenditures are coming in, and the same with ESSER 2. We do have an interesting 147C2. This was the state is paying down the part of the pension liability, somewhere around $1 billion, but the state can't pay that money right to the retirement system, so the money has to come to the schools and then the schools has to pay it. So it's an in and it's an out on both the revenue and the expenditure side. So they offset each other, except for the increase in expenditures does affect our fund balance, because our fund balance is, whatever our fund balance, I should say it affects our percentage, because that's based on our expenditures. So And let's see, that's pretty much, we have an overall increase of $719,736, which most of that is that 147C2. And then as far as expenditures, went through the budget and just, kind of increased and decreased where it was necessary based on where we were coming in at. We did increase some expenditures for, for the new meeting room in the library and utilities that were coming in higher than what I had originally had in there, custodial supplies, transportation, technology, as you can see, the whole list there. And so the overall increase was $931,000. Again, a majority of that is the 147C, and that was like 577, so almost $600,000. So at the end of the day, based on a pupil count of 1,042 and a foundation of 9,150, the estimated fund balance at June 30 is $2,213,581, which is a decrease from February of $211,408, and that leaves us with 15.05% fund balance at the end of June. That, of course, will not come in exactly that number. As there still is some spending going on in end of the year adjustments that we have to do to things, but so that is that. And then in the next column, the farthest column to the right is the proposed amendment for 23-24. And I will say that along with other people in the state, and I shared some emails with Scott, the state still doesn't have a budget. And even though they had promised that we might have it a month ago, there were several comments on the listserv of how difficult it is for us to budget when we don't even know, mostly, like what our revenues are gonna be.
Right.
And so really at this point, it's a best guess. Schools have to have their budgets adopted by June 30th, and the state probably won't finalize their budget till June 29th, and everybody will have their budgets, approved already. So, so just know with the first amendment of the year that, that will change, but I'll kind of touch on some highlights again for that. Let's see, as far as like the state and federal, we did increase the per pupil to $458. That's kind of a middle of the road guess of where that's gonna come in at. Decreased at-risk 310 and some other grants to match what we have budgeted for expenditures. Of course, ESSER 2 and 3, because those are starting to wind down, especially 2. I think we only have one expenditure left for ESSER 2 that will be in the 23-24 budget, and that's the rest of the speaker system, and then that one will be done. So, of course, I removed that one-time 147C2, the expenditures and the revenue part of that. The innovative library grant we've taken out. We did apply for that again, and if I haven't heard anything on that to know whether or not we might get it again. It would be great if we did. Section 41 and the 98C grant, which paid for some of our summer school and after-school tutoring, that was taken out. Right now, the title allocations are an estimate, and so those are a little lower than what they'll probably end up at, so I adjusted accordingly. And let's see, child care stabilization grant, that again was a big grant, $192,000 that has been taken out, and that really helped, the preschool program, come out looking well, this year, but that money, and I have not heard that we're gonna be getting that again, so basically that's the big changes, and that's an overall decrease of $889,882. And, the big changes there, of course, being, the ESSER grants and that 147C2. And then let's see, as far as expenditures, let's see, of course, we did staff and wage increases for the staff, and so that was around $283,000 of increases. I think we do have one open teaching position unless that one's been filled, but that one I just, did kind of a middle of the road where that might end up, but had 2 additional staff positions that were added, one in high school and one in special ed, so that was an increase of around 229,000. We added some incentives for the PBIS. Let's see. Of course, any of the when the revenue went down, the expenditures go down. We don't have any kids doing early middle college next year, so that was taken out. Let's see, 2 of the social workers last year are on maternity leave, and so those have been budgeted back to, full time. There's some training, election expenses. Last year, at the beginning of the year, Lisa Portman was still being paid, and that's been taken out. Projects, any of the ESSER one-time projects have been taken out, and let's see. And just, I just adjusted accordingly after meeting with all of the supervisors and the directors, and so. So again, the pupil count, we left the same at 1,042. The foundation would be at 9,608 is our guess. Leaving an estimated fund balance of 16, I can't read my note there isn't right. So $1,625,540. And an estimated percent of fund balance 11.3. So that, of course, does look, may look a little concerning at this point, but I'm not overly concerned. I don't believe Scott is. It's just, we're just waiting, to see. We have heard that there's going to be, what did he say here? And this is from the gentleman at MSBO who's like in charge of the finance. We would say the silver lining will certainly see some sizable increases in the 23-24 budget. So what those are going to be remains to be seen. So, all right, do any of you have any questions on that?
We always have, every year we have a pay down on the retirement liability, right? Isn't that a regular item?
That it is, but they did an additional this year.
Okay, so we'll still have the regular.
Yeah, the regular is there.
Okay.
And I haven't heard a new date yet for like what kind of impact that'll make on when they think that pension liability
But again,
will be
that's just an in-out,
right-sized,
right?
but yes.
They pay it to us and we pay it, okay.
Yeah, both 147 Cs work
right.
that way, yeah. So, this one, with the other one, we can expense that to like grants and special ed and everywhere. This one, it was recommended that we not do that, so it really just general fund, elementary, middle school. I did transportation, athletics, and maintenance, the biggest parts of the budget we just allocated based on budgeted wages. And
So, you and I talked a little bit last time, at one time in the governor's budget, there was just a ton of categorical stuff, special stuff about district consolidation, and there was maybe a dozen. Is that all still up in the air? So then none of that's been finalized, or?
right, hopefully they're doing that as we speak.
Okay.
Hopefully they're in a room somewhere in Lansing.
Because there was a lot of
working
those
through all of
special
those.
one-time categoricals that they were
Yeah.
trying to get rid of some money, I guess.
Well, that's how they kind of like to do it. It's kind of like, I guess similar to, doing like off schedule payments to staff and that kind of thing, where you're not building in the legacy, cost. You're just doing these one-time things that,
So were those items anywhere like in the House or the Senate budgets, or are they just kind of the governor's thing, or?
no, they were all three.
Okay,
yeah,
they were all,
yeah.
okay.
There were quite a few of them that were in all three of them. There were some that were in one, but not the other two, is usually how it worked. So I kind of figure on the ones where it's in all three, something will happen on those, and then.
They're all very common, just the dollar amounts change.
Right,
Yeah.
So, but then, as Liz said, there's some that we wanna add this one and add this one and add this one, but typically they're pretty steady, they're pretty consistent.
Yeah. And you have to imagine, they have so many people in their ears,
Oh, yeah.
you know, trying to get funding in for so many different things. And, you know, up here in this part of the country, you know, transportation is a huge one where we're always wanting additional dollars for the miles that have to be driven. And, you know, and they're doing, you know, they come up with the electric bus thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, electric buses don't really work up here that well.
But there's some things like for district consolidation and infrastructure and there was a lot
yeah.
of different items thrown
Mhm.
around.
There is. So, yeah.
So would it be reasonable to assume that when things get closed out, for 22, 23, that will be balanced? I mean, pretty darn close to it now.
I
I
think
think
so.
we'll be, yeah, I would think maybe a little more to the positive
Yeah.
than what we're showing now,
Yeah.
but not a ton. I think we have a pretty good balanced budget, you know,
Yeah.
for this to close out the year.
Liz, where do you wanna see the fund balance?
15%
Okay.
or higher.
Okay.
I was thinking about that last night, I was walking, interesting to ask that question, because in my mind, I was thinking, you know, what would we need to be able to say we could get through, you know, half the school year,
Yeah.
you know, but
Okay.
that would be, you know, because that's basically what your fund balance is telling you,
Right.
is that we can get through 15% of the year. If we didn't get any more revenue,
Yeah.
that's how far we could make
Okay.
it, you know, and it would be nice to have, you know, 25% or more, but then you run into also,
Sometimes that's not realistic.
right, it's not realistic, and we need to be spending money on kids, and so.
At one time, Scott, as we were coming out of the pandemic, we added 3, I think, social workers, right? And they were funded by a grant, but then we were going to have to assume
Mhm.
we would have to assume them a third, 2/3, kind of a step type thing.
Mhm.
So are they fully on our dime now?
No, so we hired 2 additional social workers.
Was it 2? Okay.
Yeah, so, and then we have 1 more year of them being, through 31O monies and ESSER funds.
Okay,
So the following year, we will have to
so
do
then they'll be all ours.
24, 25.
Okay, okay. But our portion for this year has been worked into this,
Yes,
okay.
correct.
Okay.
And, you know, like I had talked about at the last meeting, you know, what do we need to?
I'm just watching the time,
Okay.
yeah.
31AA funding, you know, hoping that they'll make some changes to that so that we could use that for current staff. You know, to offset the cost of some of those moving forward, so. Hopefully the right funds will get put in our ears for, you know, some of that, because there's only so many social workers and counselors to go around, you know?
Right.
And in a smaller school, you don't need 10, 15 of them, you know, you need the ones you have, you know, but it would be nice to be able to use the funding for that, so.
So when will all of the ESSER funds be worked out of our system? Couple more years?
No, we should be, the September of 24. We have to have them all either obligated and the cash has to leave the bank by December of 24, but anticipate that
Okay,
by the end of this
that'll be the
next
last
school
of
year.
ESSER 3 then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we should be done with
And
those
then we'll
this
be-
school year,
Mhm, yeah.
from what we've allocated.
Yeah. And another position too that's funded is the Director of Accountability position that's, you know, been fully funded by ESSER 3, so that'll be another thing that we'll have to, you know, work into
It's
the
been confusing.
budget, so, yeah. And then after that, you won't have to have all that extra stuff
Yeah.
on the
On the
agenda.
agendas.
Yeah.
98C will be done.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about that anymore, but, yeah, so.
So when will we have a good picture of the preschool?
Probably August.
August?
Yeah, but Liz
Wow.
asked if we could wait till August for the preschool, because she'll have a better grasp of the preschool
Okay.
revenue. I'd rather have an accurate one than an inaccurate
Yeah.
one,
So
so,
by that time, we'll know
Yeah.
how that's standing.
yeah, we'll have a better preview of the preschool and the library in
Okay.
August.
So in our preschool, when we set our rates and stuff, have they just kind of stayed stagnant?
We did not increase them this year, but we will have another GSRP classroom, which,
Okay,
according to the budgets, should get the same amount of FTE as schools.
and that'll give us 3 GSRP classrooms?
2,
2,
which will really help
okay.
offset some of the costs.
Mhm.
Because right now, we can only use 25% of GSRP funds to help offset costs. Next year, we'll be able to use, as far as preschool, Next year we'll be able to use 50% because it'll be 2 out of the 4 classrooms.
This year was 33%, last year was 25, this year 33,
Sorry,
and then
yeah.
it'll be 50. So that will help, but I'll have a better picture of, okay, this is where we ended up, this is where I predict we'll end up next year, and then
Okay,
maybe have those conversations of where do you all want that, you know, what do you want that to look like
I
at the end
think
of
we
each
have to be
year?
very aware of that, you know, what
Oh,
that's
yeah.
doing, and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
but the GSRP, they are full foundation allowance, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
As of this year, and then proposed for next year, but we don't have the budget for next year, so we don't know.
And there has been rumor of perhaps some funding for H4,
Mhm.
that wouldn't be GSR kids, but
Preschool, yeah.
yeah, that's been rumored out there as well, but, and I don't, did I hear the, NMC is not, they're not doing their program, right?
As far as the summer program.
Right.
I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
about
Oh,
preschool.
okay.
I'm assuming they're still doing preschool.
So we just didn't get enough to
I
go
don't
for
know.
it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah. And then, like Scott said, the library as well, I'll give you guys a, you know, a picture of where that, between the school library and the community library, and then the revenue coming in and, you know, what that looks like. I mean, we do have a library budget, you know, here, that gives you a picture of that portion of it, but how much of that community library is being funded by the public schools, so.
We made several adjustments, Scott, after you arrived. I mean, there were things that were discovered that we hadn't really done right, or hadn't really, I know we made up some lost, like when there had some cuts, we made that up, and, at one point, there had been some freezes on
Yes,
wages of that's all cleaned up,
it
right?
is, yep.
Okay.
That was on.
All of we're current on, like, on all our merit pays and all that, okay.
Yep, I'm not sure if our last merit pay went out in the last payroll, but yes, all the paperwork's been turned in, yes.
But as far as you know, we're clean on everything else,
Yes.
that's, okay.
We made that up during the last negotiations, yep, caught everyone up, yep.
All right,
Okay, and
Thanks.
then the library budget is, you know, in the packet as well, I don't really have a lot to say about that, so learning about that, I mean, I feel like I've become more educated on that this year, so. But that, you know, the amendment, actually is an increase of about $12,000 over what the original adopted budget was, and then a little bit of an increase for the 23-24, you know, ending fund balance for that. And again, you know, I'll show you guys a picture of how much of the public school funding is paying for that, and then maybe, you know, maybe decide that you're gonna use some of that 83,000 to start paying for some of the, community library expenses that are being paid for on the other side.
So what are the intermediate sources, that's the main, what is that, where,
That is the penal fines that come
Okay.
in from
so those
the
are state payments, okay.
Yeah. And then the state sources are, there's a couple small library grants that come in from the state, so. And then, so that's that, the Fund 29 school activity budget. If you look at what was adopted to where I show that we're at as far as the revenue and expenses, I will say that I did my due diligence of trying to come up with those numbers the best that I could. I don't have access to the software that they use for the student activity funds. I have asked Dylan if he could somehow give me access so that I can print some reports. But I did go in and Lisa Bronkema provided me with some information, and then I also went in and looked at bank transactions. So I hope I'm close. There was there was a Disney trip this year, and I know that would have some influence, I think, on those revenue and expenses too, which I don't think that's been done in a couple of years because of COVID.
right.
So, and then for 23-24, I budgeted it back kind of an average of where we're showing we're at now and where we ended up 21, 22. So, but that usually is a budget that most schools just do at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. It's just a new requirement as of the last couple of years, so. And then for the food service budget, so, you know, for this year, you know, amended everything, you know, closer to actual, what I anticipate. I think we have all our meal claims in now and, you know, estimate of where our summer expenditures are gonna come out for the month of June. And we did move a portion of the spend down plan into 23-24 because we weren't able to get it all done this school year. So some of those expenditures have been moved forward to next year under the capital outlay item under expenditures. And then as far as revenues for next year, again, because we don't have a state budget, there's a chance that all meals are gonna be free, but you guys are also gonna be CEP. So I decreased, you know, and you know, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, but I decreased the revenue that would come in for the paid students, and then also decreased the federal revenue a little bit, just because we don't know exactly what that's gonna look like as far as how we're gonna get paid and what the revenue is gonna look like until the state has a budget. So, so again, kind of guesswork there. And at the end of this year, it's gonna probably look like we still have about a $60,000 spend down that would need to happen. But we're carrying over the spend down plan from this year, so that will take care of that. It's just kind of frustrating the way the state does it. It'll show that we have this spend down. They won't subtract from it the amount they let us carry over to next year. And so Scott will still get a letter in the spring saying that we need to spend down funds, but it should be all taken care of by that point. So it's the timing of everything. So
Liz, why do we have, okay, so we have salaries and stuff on, like for food service.
okay.
Why do we not have salaries and things for the library? Is that because the community library fund is a community fund and then like does the school pay for these salaries?
Right now they have been, and right now off the top of my head, can't remember how far back that goes. But that's the way it was.
2018, if I remember.
Okay, yeah. And, I mean, I was gonna say, I know before Scott got here and before I started, it used to be that a portion of, Diane's salary was paid out of the community library.
But
and
right
when it
now it's all
wasn't-
taken on by the school, even for
Right.
the community stuff like the Saturdays and all of that kind of stuff.
Right,
Okay.
and so, you know, we may want to come up with like a, you know, a percentage of time, that she and the aides are working the community library and start taking that
You're
out
saying
of
prior
her.
to 18 it was?
I wanna say 2018 is
Okay.
what we talked about, is
Yeah,
that
I might
was
have known that.
when the community fund stopped paying towards the community library.
At what point is it no longer community?
During the school
Library.
hours, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, but it's still open to the community during the
Yes.
school
Yeah,
hours,
okay.
so.
I say they still have a lot of activities
It-
going on during.
Yeah, it's
the
one of the
school
things that
hours.
Liz and I are trying to figure out,
Okay,
with
I
all
just wondered
that.
if that's what that meant, so that is what that means,
And
okay.
it's something that started 30 years ago, and I
Right.
believe it was part of a bond or
Yeah.
partial, well, there was a part of a millage that would go to the community library as well, which that has expired, and yeah, so.
Kind of like the community track.
Yeah, and so basically, you know, it's just those penal fines and those small, so
We're,
there's not a
we're
lot of.
funded, there's different kinds of libraries, right? There's, like, we have a school community library.
Mhm.
Now, that's different than the library in Lake City, that's a district library,
Would be
right?
a county library, yeah.
So they have different funding sources, they have
Mhm.
different, okay.
And I don't know if there's maybe a millage, I'm not sure. There's not very many community school libraries. I did put a question out on listserv to find out how other ones were, you know, funded.
Just good to know.
The ones that I
and I can-
talked to superintendents that were funded, it wasn't open to the community during school hours. And then there was that separation, and then the community fund would pick up after hours or
Oh.
on Saturdays, different things like that. So I think it's just something that we continue to explore, and we'll get some more details about finances on it in August, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Okay,
Public comment.
move on to public comments. Seeing nobody. Do I have a motion to adjourn the taxation meeting?
Motion.
Support.
Motion support, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, we can flip the page. We can start our regular budget meeting. We're gonna say the pledge again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we need to amend and or accept tonight's agenda. We do have one amendment to it, and that will be action item E, will be, Mr. Mead's resignation letter. So add that to the end.
Okay, I have E on this one.
I don't have E on this one.
Oh, I bet I didn't print the amended budget for you guys.
This one has E on the, E being the approval of the
Resolution.
resolution.
She sent out an amended budget. I didn't
Yeah,
print
she
an
sent out
amended
an
one for you,
amended.
so it'd be letter F.
Okay, letter F.
I apologize. I just printed the one from the packet.
So letter F will be Mr. Mead.
And letter E is what? Amended budget?
The
E is
resolution to
approve
borrow.
the resolution for borrowing against state aid.
Oh,
E, that's E.
Yeah.
Right,
Thanks, Ken.
Scott?
Yep, thanks, Ken. Yep.
yep.
I apologize.
Make a motion that we accept the agenda as amended.
Support. All right, we have motion support for tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Public comment. Seeing none, I think we can move on from that to action items. Action item A, approve the 2022-2023 amended general fund budget and the 2023-2024 proposed general fund budget as presented.
So moved. Support.
We have motion support. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action item B, approve the 2022-2023 amended library budget and the 2023-2024 proposed library budget as presented.
Motion.
Support.
Motion support for the library budget. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action item C, approve the 2022-2023 amended Fund 29 budget and the 2023-2024 Fund 29 activity proposed budget.
Motion.
Support.
Motion support for the Fund 29 budget. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action item D, approve the 2022-2023 amended food service budget and the 2023-2024 food service proposed budget as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support for the food service budget. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, action item E is the approve the resolution authorizing insurance of notes in anticipation of state school aid.
Motion?
Support.
Motion and support for the state school aid. Any discussion?
Somewhere I saw a note where we're going to solicit bids from banks. I think that's a good move. It's always just been with the state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I think it's a good,
The other way.
what's that?
Yeah, we have done the banks, but we haven't, applied to the state.
Oh, I think it's a good move to offer it to the banks, local banks. I think it's a good public relations move, and
And as Liz said, we're typically McBain has done that, and they're going with the state now too, just to see what rates that there are. So we have a better comparison than just going through the banks too. But yeah, I agree with you.
yeah, it's a good PR thing, I think.
Eastern Bank is, at least the last 2 years, has been the bank that has gotten it, but.
There's a difference with the pay downs, right? So there's a difference.
There's,
Yeah.
For the
We won't
first
get
year,
into this
if
kind
we
of-
go in the state pool this year, for the first year that you're in the state pool or back in the pool, I don't know if you guys have ever done it, but it has to be paid down over a 3-month period instead of like with the bank, we just can pay it back, whenever in one lump sum, so. Now, last year, the pool ended up being lower, they were at like 1-point-something% interest, and Eastern Bank was at 3.12, so that's why I thought maybe we should. And as far as the pool goes, it's an estimated interest rate, because until they get everybody in the pool, that's gonna be in the pool together to go out for the, for the bonds, then.
One time I thought the banks got some tax breaks too, on this type of thing too. I thought they had some incentives to, not sure on that, but.
Well, you might.
Okay, I think we do have a motion and support, correct?
Yep.
Any more questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action item F is to approve the resignation letter of Mr. Marcus Lee.
Motion.
Support.
We have a motion support for Marcus's resignation. Any questions or comments?
Well, I'd just like to thank Mr. Mead for his service to the school. As his letter states, he's had some life changes over the last couple of years and needed to be closer to his home, so I was able to get a job in a district closer to his home and on the same calendar as his family, so we're happy for him.
Yes. Okay, a motion support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comments. I don't think we're gonna have any tonight. Anything from the board? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
Motion support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So the next meeting will be in the new place.
Yes, the new.
So I'm almost sitting in there all by myself tonight.
Were you really?
No, I was like, Kevin, where am I supposed to be? I'm on time. I don't wanna be